For 16 years, my parents forgot to invite me to Christmas. Not once, not twice. 16 consecutive years. Every December 24th, like clockwork, I found out the same way, through photos. There would be exactly 23 people in the pictures, matching sweaters, champagne flutes, wrapped gifts stacked taller than the fireplace, the same coastal house, the same living room, the same caption every year. Family, tradition, blessed. And every year I was missing. The first time it happened, I was 16 years old. December 25th, 2008. I was sitting on my bed scrolling. Facebook when I saw the photo. My mother in the center. My younger sister pressed into her side, smiling. My father standing behind them. One arm draped protectively over both. Cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone. I thought it was a mistake. I called my mom that night. She sounded distracted. "Oh, that," she said. "We thought you were busy." "Busy doing what?" I was a teenager. I lived 10 miles away. The next year it happened again. And the year after that. And the year after that. By year 4, I stopped calling. By year 7, I stopped asking. By year 10, I stopped expecting anything at all. Still, every Christmas morning, I woke up alone. No call, no text, no explanation, just photos. 16 years. 16 Christmases, always the same house. Their favorite place. The place my grandparents bought in 1989. A beach property everyone referred to as the family home. Everyone except me. Last January, my grandmother died. I didn't hear it from my parents. I didn't hear it from my sister. I found out through a Facebook post from a cousin I barely knew. A single photo. Grandma smiling. Caption, "Rest easy." That was it. No call, no warning, no message asking if I was okay. I sat on my couch staring at my phone for 42 minutes, waiting for it to ring. It never did. The funeral was 3 days later. I drove there anyway. When I arrived, the service had already started. I later learned the time had been changed. Everyone else had been told. I hadn't. I slipped into the back row. No one turned around. Not my father. Not my mother. Not my sister. After the burial, I stood near the edge of the crowd, waiting for a moment to speak to my parents. My mother was surrounded by relatives, accepting condolences like a host at a dinner party. I finally stepped forward. "Mom," I said. She looked at me like I had startled her. "Oh," she said. "You made it." That was it. No hug. No apology. No, "I'm glad you're here." Just, "You made it." Like I was late. Like I was optional. 3 weeks later, a man named Harold Finch called me. He introduced himself as my grandmother's attorney. I didn't know my grandmother had an attorney. He asked to meet privately. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. "Please don't inform your parents or your sister about this call." I asked if something was wrong. He paused. "No," he said. "Something is very right." We met the next morning. He handed me a letter written in my grandmother's handwriting. I recognized it immediately. The careful loops, the way she always underlined names. I read it twice before the words fully registered. Then he told me the truth. My grandmother had left me the house. The beach house. The same house my parents had spent 16 Christmases celebrating in without me. The property my mother openly referred to as hers someday. The house valued at just over $2.3 million. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I didn't say thank you. I asked one question instead. How long will it take before anyone else finds out? Harold looked at me carefully. That depends entirely on what you want to do. I thought about 16 Christmas mornings alone. 16 years of silence. 16 times being erased quietly, politely, without confrontation. I don't want anyone to know yet, I said. He nodded. Your grandmother thought you might say that. That was when he handed me a second envelope and told me to take my time. I didn't know then how I would use it. I only knew one thing. For the first time in my life, I was holding something my family wanted, and Christmas was coming. At the time all of this happened, my life was quiet. Not sad, not dramatic, just quiet. I lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, beige walls, second-hand couch, a small balcony that faced the parking lot instead of anything meaningful. I worked full-time as a senior analyst at a mid-sized logistics firm, the kind of job that rewards consistency more than charisma. I paid my bills on time. I cooked most of my meals. I went to bed early on weeknights. There was no chaos in my life, no scandals, no emergencies. That part mattered later, because when people found out what happened, some of them tried to rewrite the story. They wanted me to be unstable, emotional, reckless. I wasn't. I had built a life that functioned without my parents long before the inheritance ever existed. My sister, on the other hand, had never needed to. Lena was 3 years younger than me in everything. I wasn't allowed to be. Loud, confident, centered. She still lived 10 minutes from my parents' house and stopped by unannounced several times a week. She called them for advice on small decisions. What car to buy, what paint color to choose, whether a work email sounded too harsh. She didn't ask me those things. She never had. At family events, the few I was technically invited to growing up, people gravitated toward her automatically. She told stories. She laughed loudly. She knew exactly when to speak and when to let silence work in her favor. My parents adored her openly. They didn't hide it. They didn't need to. My mother framed Lena's achievements and hung them in the hallway. Awards, certificates, photos. When Lena got engaged, my parents threw a dinner. When she bought her first house, they hosted a party. When she got promoted, my father called relatives to share the news. When I graduated college, my mother mailed me a card. No return address. My father was different, but not in the way people imagine. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't loud. He wasn't openly dismissive. He was quiet. He sat at the head of the table and let my mother speak for both of them. He nodded when she talked. He changed the subject when things got uncomfortable. He believed peace came from avoiding conflict, even if that conflict involved his own daughter. If my mother forgot to invite me to something, he assumed there was a reason. If Lena said I was busy, he accepted it. If I wasn't in the room, he didn't ask why. I don't think he ever meant to hurt me, but intention doesn't erase impact. As an adult, I stopped reaching out first. Not dramatically. Not with an announcement. I just stopped. I stopped reminding them of my birthday. Stopped asking about holidays. Stopped filling the silence they seemed perfectly comfortable with. When my mother called, it was usually practical. A question about paperwork. A reminder about insurance. A request to forward a document. She never asked how I was unless it came at the end of a sentence like punctuation. And work is fine, right? I always said yes. Because it was. The truth was, my life worked best when my parents were background noise instead of a central presence. I had friends who knew me well. A routine that didn't depend on approval. A sense of self that wasn't constantly recalibrating around someone else's expectations. That didn't mean it didn't hurt. It just meant I learned to carry it quietly. The beach house existed in my life like a rumor. It was always there, just out of reach. A place everyone referenced but never invited me to. A constant reminder that my absence had become normalized. I saw it in photos, heard about it in passing. We'll all be at the house for Christmas, my mother would say, as if narrating a weather report. She never followed that sentence with an invitation. I don't think she even realized she wasn't including me anymore. Or maybe she did. Either way, the result was the same. When Harold Finch slid that letter across the desk and told me the house was mine, I didn't feel excitement. I felt clarity, because suddenly, all the quiet patterns I'd lived with my entire life snapped into focus. The forgotten invitations, the assumptions, the way my absence had become convenient. Nothing about my life had prepared my family for what was coming. But everything about my life had prepared me, and somewhere deep down, even before I said the words out loud, I knew this wasn't just about property. It was about 16 years of being quietly erased. And what happens when the person everyone overlooks finally stops stepping aside? When people hear that my parents forgot to invite me to Christmas for 16 years, they imagine one dramatic argument, one explosive falling out, something obvious. That wasn't it. What happened to me was quieter than that. It happened in small, reasonable moments. Moments that could always be explained away. Moments that, on their own, didn't seem worth fighting over. That's how it worked. The pattern started long before the Christmas photos. When I was 17, my parents planned a family vacation to Florida. 2 weeks. Beachfront rental. I found out about it the night before they left. When my sister asked if I could water her plants. "You're not coming?" she said, genuinely surprised. My mother was in the room. She didn't look up from her phone. "We assumed you wouldn't want to miss work," she said. I was a high school senior. I worked 10 hours a week at a bookstore. The following year, it was a cousin's wedding. Everyone was invited to the rehearsal dinner except me. My mother told me it was very small. I later saw photos. 38 people attended. When I asked about it, she frowned. "You're always so sensitive about these things," she said. "If you wanted to come, you could have asked." That sentence became a theme. If you wanted to be there, you should have said something. If it mattered, you would have spoken up. We didn't know you cared. The burden was always on me to prove I belonged. Meanwhile, my sister never had to ask. She was assumed, included by default. If plans changed, she was updated immediately. If details shifted, someone made sure she knew. With me, communication was optional. At holidays that I did attend early on, I learned my place quickly. Conversations stopped when I joined them. Seating arrangements shifted, so there was never quite a chair for me. My sister's preferences were always accounted for first. Where she wanted to sit, what she wanted to eat, when she wanted to leave. Once when I was 23, I decided to stop waiting for an invitation. I drove to the beach house anyway. I told myself it was confidence, that showing up would remind them I existed. My mother opened the door and froze. Not smiled, not surprised, frozen. "What are you doing here?" she asked before catching herself. Behind her, I heard my sister's voice from the living room. Did anyone actually invite her? No one answered. My mother laughed too loudly and stepped aside. "Of course you're welcome," she said. But the damage was already done. I stayed one night, left before breakfast. No one asked why. After that, the invitations stopped entirely. Not officially. They just faded. I wasn't told dates anymore, or times, or plans. I wasn't included in group messages. When I asked questions, answers came late or not at all. And when I noticed, I was told I was imagining things. That's not true. We thought you knew. You've always been independent. Independent became the excuse for neglect. If I didn't react strongly enough, nothing changed. If I reacted at all, I was overreacting. My father watched all of this quietly. When I brought it up to him once, just once, he sighed and said, "Your mother doesn't mean it that way." That was the end of the conversation. My grandmother noticed. She never said it directly, but she would ask questions that felt heavier than they sounded. "Are you coming for Christmas this year? Did your mother call you? Have you seen the house lately?" When I said no, she would go quiet. Once, when I was sitting on her porch in late December, she touched my hand and said, "Some people don't know how to sit with their past." I didn't understand what she meant then. Over time, I learned not to bring up holidays at all. It was easier to say I had plans, easier to pretend solitude was a choice, easier to act unaffected than to explain why. Being forgotten hurt more than being told no. The beach house became the symbol of it all. Every year I saw the same photos, same couch, same fireplace, same tradition of matching sweaters that I'd never been part of. 16 years is a long time to be excluded quietly. Long enough that people stop noticing you're gone. Long enough that absence feels normal. Long enough that when someone finally asks where you are, the answer comes easily. She prefers being alone. She's busy. She didn't want to come. By the time my grandmother died, the story had been rehearsed for years. So when Harold Finch told me the house was mine, I didn't feel like I was taking something away from my family. I felt like something was finally being returned. Because neglect doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it looks like forgetting. And forgetting someone for 16 years takes practice. What my family didn't realize, what none of them could see through the routines and excuses and silence, was that patterns don't disappear just because no one names them. They accumulate. They wait. And eventually, they reach a breaking point. I just hadn't decided yet when mine would come. The last Christmas my grandmother was alive, something shifted. I didn't know it at the time. I only felt it. That December, my mother called me for the first time in months, not to invite me anywhere, not to ask how I was, just to inform me. "We're all going to the house again," she said. "Same plan as usual. The house." She didn't say Christmas. She didn't say family. She didn't say you should come. Just the house. I remember looking at the calendar after we hung up. December 23rd was circled in red. That was the day everyone always arrived. I stared at it for a long time, knowing exactly where 23 people would be while I sat alone again. 2 days later, my grandmother called. That alone was unusual. She never called in December. She said the holidays exhausted her. Too many people, too much noise, too many expectations. Her voice sounded thinner than usual. "Are you coming this year?" she asked. I hesitated. "I wasn't invited," I said. There was a pause. "A long one?" "That doesn't make sense," she said finally. "Your family." I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I'd done that too many times already. "I'm fine, Grandma," I said. "Really?" She sighed. "They're all coming early this year," she said. "Your mother's been organizing everything. Rooms, meals, activities." I pictured it instantly. My sister choosing the biggest bedroom. My mother directing traffic. My father carrying luggage without asking questions. "And you?" I asked. "I'll manage," she said. Her tone was careful, controlled. Before we hung up, she said something that stayed with me. "If anything ever happens to me," she said, "I want you to know I see you." I laughed it off. Told her she was being dramatic. She didn't laugh back. That Christmas, I stayed home again. On December 25th, I saw the photos. Same sweaters, same couch, same fireplace, same number of people, except my grandmother wasn't in the center anymore. She sat off to the side, wrapped in a blanket, smiling but tired. I zoomed in on the photo and noticed something I hadn't before. Her hand wasn't on my mother's arm. It was folded in her lap. A month later, she was gone. After the funeral, after the lawyer, after the letter, I started seeing the past differently. Things I had ignored suddenly felt deliberate. The way my mother always referred to the house as hers someday. The way she scheduled repairs without asking. The way my sister spoke about which room she'd always get. None of them questioned ownership. None of them ever asked, because no one imagined the house could belong to me. Over the next few months, the family made plans like nothing had changed. Easter, 4th of July, summer birthdays. Group photos appeared online, all taken in rooms I technically owned. No one noticed the locks had been changed. No one checked the records. No one asked why my grandmother's name was suddenly missing from property tax mail. They assumed tradition would continue uninterrupted. Meanwhile, I prepared quietly. Not emotionally. Logistically. Documents, dates, copies. When I called the county office to confirm the deed transfer, the clerk congratulated me. "Your family must be excited," she said. I didn't correct her. By November, the plans for Christmas were louder than ever. My sister posted a countdown. My mother emailed relatives about arrival times. Rooms were assigned. Groceries planned. No one contacted me. No one wondered why. A week before Christmas, my aunt, my grandmother's younger sister, called unexpectedly. "Are you coming this year?" she asked. Her voice carried something new. Concern. "I'll be there," I said. She exhaled slowly. "Good," she said, "because something about this doesn't feel right." "What do you mean?" I asked. She hesitated. "Your mother's been acting like she owns things she doesn't," she said. "And your grandmother was very particular at the end. About fairness." I thanked her and hung up. On December 22nd, I packed a single suitcase. Not gifts. Not decorations. Paperwork. On the morning of December 24th, I drove to the house alone. I arrived before sunrise. The ocean was quiet. The driveway empty. The house dark. I unlocked the door with a key that only I possessed. And for the first time, I stood inside the place that had excluded me for 16 years, knowing that by nightfall, every single person who believed they belonged there was going to learn the truth. They just didn't know yet. They were still on their way. They arrived just before noon, 6 vehicles pulling into the gravel driveway one after another, exactly as they had every year. SUVs packed with suitcases, gift bags, coolers, folding chairs, 23 people spilling out like they owned the place. I stood inside the house and watched through the front window. My mother led the group, as always. She walked ahead of everyone, keys already in her hand, talking loudly about room assignments. My sister followed close behind, directing her husband toward the back of the car. "Put the big bags in the master bedroom," she said. "That's where Mom stays." The master bedroom. I didn't move. I waited. My mother reached the front door and slid her key into the lock. It didn't turn. She tried again. Harder this time. Nothing. "What the?" she muttered, jiggling it. I opened the door from the inside. The look on her face was immediate and unmistakable. Shock first, then confusion, then something sharper. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Her voice carried. Conversations behind her stopped mid-sentence. 23 people turned toward the door. "I'm home," I said calmly. My sister pushed forward, eyes flicking past me into the house. "How did you get in?" she asked. "I unlocked the door," I said. My mother laughed, short and forced. "Very funny," she said. "The lock must be broken. Richard, try your key." Her husband stepped forward, inserted his key, twisted. Nothing. Silence spread across the porch. People shifted their weight. Children stopped running. "I changed the locks," I said. My mother's smile vanished. "You changed the locks on my mother's house?" she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's not your mother's house," I replied. The words landed heavily. A few people glanced at each other. Someone cleared their throat. My mother laughed again, louder this time. "Don't be ridiculous," she said. "We're not doing this today." "We are," I said. That's when my aunt noticed the police car. It was parked at the edge of the driveway, partially hidden behind the trees. The lights were off, the engine running. "Why is there a sheriff here?" she asked. Every head turned. The deputy stepped forward then, slow and deliberate. He adjusted his hat and addressed the group professionally. "Good morning," he said. "I'm Deputy Marcus Webb. I've been asked to be present for a property matter." My mother's face tightened. "There's been a mistake," she said quickly. "This is our family home." The deputy looked at me. "Ms. Carter?" he asked. I handed him the folder. He opened it and glanced at the documents inside. Deed, will, property records. Then he turned back to the group. "This property is legally owned by her," he said, nodding toward me. As of 11 months ago. Silence, absolute crushing silence. My sister stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. "That's not possible," she said. "Grandma would never—" "She did," I said. My mother lunged forward and grabbed the papers from the deputy's hands. She flipped through them wildly, eyes darting, breath shallow. "This isn't real," she said. She was confused. She didn't know what she was doing. "The will was drafted 5 years ago and updated twice," the deputy said calmly. "All legally witnessed." People began to murmur. A cousin stepped back. An uncle frowned. My mother looked up at me, her face red. "You planned this," she said. "You waited until everyone was here." I didn't raise my voice. "Yes," I said. Her mouth fell open. "You humiliated us," she said. I met her eyes. "You've done that to me for 16 years. The words hung there. No one spoke. My mother straightened, her face hardening. "Fine," she said loudly. "You want to know why you were never invited?" The air shifted. I felt it. Everyone felt it. She pointed at my face. "Because every time I look at you," she said, "I see your father." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "That useless man," she continued. "That mistake I never recovered from." No one moved. No one defended me. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I just looked at her. And for the first time, everyone else did too. I let the silence stretch. Let the discomfort settle. Let the truth sit exactly where she'd dropped it. Then I turned to the deputy. "Please give them 30 minutes, I said evenly, "to collect their belongings and leave my property." A few people inhaled sharply. 30 minutes. Christmas Eve. My mother stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. "You can't do this," she said. "I already am," I replied. As the deputy checked his watch, and the family began to break, apart in stunned confusion, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not triumph, not anger, relief. And before the last car pulled away, before the final door slammed, my aunt stepped closer and whispered something that made my hands shake. "She told me," she said softly, "before she died. There's more you need to know." I looked at her, and suddenly I understood. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The 30 minutes passed slowly. Not because anyone was rushing, but because reality had finally caught up to them. Suitcases were dragged back across the gravel. Coolers were shoved into trunks without care. Children were ushered into cars, confused and quiet. Conversations happened in low voices, sharp whispers that stopped the moment I came into view. I stayed inside. I didn't hover. I didn't watch from the porch. I didn't explain myself to anyone. I sat at the dining table and organized papers. Because this wasn't emotional anymore. This was administrative. 11 months earlier, Harold Finch had warned me about this exact moment. If they don't get angry, he said, they'll try to get clever. He was right. The first thing my mother did wasn't cry. It wasn't apologize. It was reach for control. While everyone else scrambled, she stayed on the porch, phone pressed to her ear, pacing. I didn't need to hear the conversation to know who she was calling. A lawyer. She had done that before. Anytime things didn't go her way, she escalated. Confident. Certain. Used to winning through authority alone. The problem was, authority only works when you actually have it. At 12:41 p.m., Deputy Webb came inside. "They're asking if they can speak with you," he said neutrally. "About what?" I asked. "Ownership," he replied. "And timelines." I nodded and stood. Outside, my mother had regained her composure. Her posture was straight again, her voice calm. She gestured toward the house like a negotiator pointing at a map. "This has sentimental value," she said. "We've maintained it for decades. I didn't argue. I handed her another folder. Inside were receipts, every property tax payment for the past 11 months, paid by me, on time, documented. Insurance policy transfers, dated signed. Utility bills in my name. Then came the renovation invoices. October, $12,482.72. New shingles, deck repainting, kitchen appliance upgrades. Paid by my mother, for a property she did not own. She stared at the numbers, confused. You knew, she said slowly. You let me. I didn't let you do anything, I replied. You assumed. Her lawyer, yes, she had already gotten one on the phone, asked for copies. I had them. Then I slid over the second stack. Bank statements. Not mine, hers. She stiffened. These, I said calmly, are transfers made from an account you opened jointly with my grandmother. My mother's face went pale. Over the years, she had moved money out of that account regularly. Small amounts, always under the threshold that triggered alerts. Maintenance reimbursements. Emergency expenses, household needs. It totaled $186,000, all justified verbally. None authorized in writing. Harold had flagged it months ago. Financial deception always comes before legal wrongdoing. That's how people justify crossing lines. They convince themselves they're entitled. The lawyer's tone changed. These transactions, he said carefully, may require further review. They will, Deputy Webb added, if the owner chooses to pursue them. I didn't raise my voice. I haven't decided yet, I said. That uncertainty landed harder than any threat. My sister stepped forward then, eyes darting between us. You're really doing this? She asked. On Christmas? I looked at her. I didn't choose the timing, I said. You did. For 16 years. She opened her mouth, closed it again. My father stood back, silent as always. This time the silence wasn't protection. It was exposure. When the lawyer finally hung up, my mother's confidence was gone. Her voice lowered. Let's talk privately, she said. We're family. That word, family, used only when leverage was needed. I've already said everything I need to say, I replied. Then I handed Deputy Webb the final documents. Eviction notices. 23 of them. Each one printed, named, dated, legal, enforceable. The deputy glanced at them and nodded. You've got 15 minutes left, he announced to the group. That was when the panic started. Not loud, not dramatic, practical panic. Where to go? Which hotel still had rooms? Who would drive together? My mother stood frozen. You're enjoying this, she accused. I shook my head. No, I said. I prepared for it. That distinction mattered. Enjoyment fades. Preparation lasts. One by one they left. No shouting. No confrontation. Just the sound of engines starting, gravel crunching, doors closing. My sister was the last to go. She paused by her car and looked at me one final time. I didn't know, she said quietly. I know, I replied. And that was the truth. She hadn't known, but she also hadn't asked. When the driveway was empty, Deputy Webb handed me his card. If they return, he said, call me. I thanked him. When the patrol car disappeared down the road, the house went silent. For the first time, it was my silence, not the kind that excludes, the kind that settles. I walked through the rooms slowly. The living room. The kitchen. The hallway lined with photos that never included me. On the mantel, I noticed a frame turned slightly away from the others. Behind it was an envelope. Cream-colored, my name on the front, written in my grandmother's handwriting. I didn't open it yet, because something told me whatever was inside would change how I understood everything that had come before. And I needed to sit with that, just a little longer. I opened the envelope after the house went quiet. Not immediately. I made tea first, sat at the table, let my hands stop shaking. The paper inside was folded once. No seal, no drama. Just my grandmother's handwriting, steady despite the tremor I knew she'd had toward the end. You deserve the truth, even if it breaks what little piece remains. That was the first line. I read it twice. Then I kept going. My grandmother wrote about the year I was born, about how my mother had come home with me and shut down almost overnight. How she refused help, refused visitors, refused to let anyone hold me for weeks. She looks at the baby like a mirror, my grandmother wrote. Not with hatred, with regret. I swallowed. The letter explained what no one had ever said out loud. My father hadn't just been a mistake in my mother's eyes. He had been a rebellion. She married him young, against her parents' wishes. He was creative, unstable, poor. Everything my grandparents feared. When he died, my mother didn't just lose a husband. She lost the version of herself she had fought to become. And I looked exactly like him. Same eyes, same expressions, same quiet intensity. Every milestone of mine reminded her of the life she believed ruined her future. My grandmother wrote about a conversation she'd had with my mother when I was 6. She asked me once if it was wrong to love one child more than another. The letter said. I told her it wasn't love she was talking about. It was resentment. The room felt smaller. Then came the part that reframed everything. My grandmother had known for years that my mother planned to leave the house to my sister. Not because my sister needed it, not because she earned it, because she was the safe one, the child who didn't remind her of her past, the child who fit the narrative. My grandmother had confronted her about it. You're punishing the wrong person, she'd said. My mother's response was written verbatim. I can't look at her without feeling like I failed. I folded the letter and stared at the wall. 16 years of exclusion hadn't been accidental. It had been strategic, not in the sense of planning every slight, but in consistently choosing avoidance over accountability. My absence made her life easier. My silence made the lie believable. The letter ended with one final truth. My grandmother had changed her will after realizing something else. The house wasn't just property. It was leverage, the only thing my mother truly wanted, the only thing that would force her to face what she'd done. I didn't leave you the house to punish them, my grandmother wrote. I left it to protect you, and to stop the pretending. I sat there for a long time. When I finally stood, my aunt was still there, standing by the window. She didn't ask what the letter said. She didn't need to. She never hated you, she said softly. But she hated what she saw in you. I nodded. That was worse. Because hatred can be challenged. Shame just hides. Word spread faster than I expected. By evening, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Group chats I'd never been included in suddenly added me. Messages stacked on top of each other. Some were angry. Some were defensive. Some were desperate. But the family fractured along a clear line. Those who had benefited from the silence wanted it restored. Those who had questioned it quietly finally had answers. My sister called. I didn't answer. Not because I was angry, because I needed space to understand what this meant for me. The truth didn't make my childhood hurt less, but it explained why nothing I did had ever been enough, why trying harder never changed the outcome, why love had always felt conditional. I hadn't failed to belong. I had been excluded to preserve someone else's story. That night, my aunt hugged me before she left. She'll never admit it, she said. But this is the consequence. I stood alone in the house after. The same house that had witnessed 16 years of laughter without me. Now it held the truth instead. And the truth had weight. It broke illusions. It ended excuses. It separated people who could live with honesty from those who couldn't. Before I went to bed, I checked my phone one last time. A message from my sister sat unread. I didn't know yet if I would ever respond. But I knew one thing with certainty. The version of me who kept waiting for inclusion no longer existed. And once a family story cracks open, it never goes back the way it was. Do you think knowing the truth is always better than living with uncertainty? Especially when it changes how you see your own childhood. The judgment didn't come from me. That was the part my mother never expected. She thought I would yell, cry, demand apologies. She thought I would need closure from her. Instead, it came from the one person she had never been able to control. My aunt. 2 days after Christmas, she called a family meeting. Not at the house. Not at anyone's home. At a neutral place. A small private room at a community center near the coast. Folding chairs. Fluorescent lights. No symbolism. No comfort. I didn't organize it. I didn't ask for it. But I went. So did most of the family. My mother arrived late, visibly composed. Dressed as if this were a professional obligation. My sister sat beside her, rigid. My father took a seat slightly behind them, hands folded, eyes down. My aunt stood at the front. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't pace. She held a single folder in her hands. I'm not here to debate the will, she said calmly. That's settled. I'm here because for years, something has been wrong in this family, and we all benefited from pretending it wasn't. No one interrupted her. She looked directly at my mother. You told us Yelena preferred being alone, she said. You told us she was invited. You told us she didn't want to come. My mother didn't respond. My aunt turned to the rest of the room. Every one of you believed that, she said, because it was easier than asking her directly. People shifted. Someone cleared their throat. I didn't. one cousin said quietly. I wondered. So did I, another added. My aunt nodded. That's the point, she said. Wondering without acting is still choosing silence. Then she did something unexpected. She opened the folder and read aloud. Not the will, a letter. One my grandmother had written months before she died. In it, she named the exclusion, the excuses, the way my absence had been normalized. She wrote about my mother's resentment, my father's passivity, the family's comfort with imbalance. She ended with a single sentence. If you are hearing this after I am gone, it means I didn't stop it in time. The room was silent. My mother finally spoke. This is unnecessary, she said. Private family matters shouldn't be aired like this. My aunt looked at her steadily. You made it public every Christmas, she replied. Photos, traditions, stories, you just didn't include her. That was the moment something shifted. Not dramatically, not explosively, but irreversibly. My aunt announced that she would no longer attend events organized by my mother, that she would not support any legal challenges to the will, that she would not correct the narrative for her anymore. Others followed. Not all, but enough. Invitations were declined. Group chats went quiet. Conversations changed tone. No one yelled at my mother. They just stopped cushioning her. That was the consequence. As for me, I said very little. When someone asked if I wanted to speak, I shook my head. I don't need to, I said. Everything important has already been said. That was true. Justice didn't come in the form of punishment. It came in the form of clarity. My mother left early. My sister stayed behind, standing awkwardly near the door. I don't know where this leaves us, she said. I do, I replied. It leaves us honest. She nodded, unsure. I walked out into the cold air feeling lighter than I had in years. Not vindicated, resolved. Because justice doesn't always mean someone loses everything. Sometimes it means they lose the ability to pretend nothing happened. And sometimes that's enough. Life didn't transform overnight. There was no montage where everything suddenly made sense. No dramatic reconciliation. No final speech that fixed what 16 years of silence had broken. What happened instead was quieter and real. In January, I went back to work. Same job, same desk, same routines. The difference was internal. I stopped flinching when my phone buzzed. Stopped wondering if I'd done something wrong when days passed without messages. The silence didn't feel like rejection anymore. It felt like space. By February, I made a decision I'd been circling for years. I asked to go fully remote. My company approved it within a week. No resistance. No negotiation. Apparently, I had built more credibility than I realized. I packed my apartment slowly, deliberately. I didn't rush. I donated what I didn't need. Kept only what mattered, and then I moved into the house. Not as a symbol. As a home. I repainted the guest room first. Soft gray. Neutral. Mine. I replaced the mattress in the master. Bedroom without guilt. Rearranged the living room so the couch no longer faced the fireplace like an altar to tradition. I took down the photos that didn't include me. Not angrily, just honestly. In their place. I hung a single frame. One picture of my grandmother and me sitting on the porch, laughing. No audience, no performance. Just us. The calls came sporadically. My father left a voicemail in March. Apologized in vague language. Said he wished things had gone differently. I didn't call back. Not because I was punishing him. Because I wasn't interested in conversations that didn't include accountability. My sister texted occasionally. Neutral updates, weather, work, her daughter. We met once for coffee. It was awkward, civil, real. I didn't see it, she admitted. But I benefit from not seeing it. I nodded. That was enough honesty for now. My mother tried twice more. Different numbers. Different tones. Anger. Guilt. Bargaining. Never apology. Eventually the call stopped. And with them, the tension I'd carried my entire life. By summer, the house felt lived in. Not perfect. Comfortable. I hosted small dinners. Friends who chose me. Conversations that didn't require translating myself. Laughter that didn't pause when I entered a room. On Christmas morning, my first Christmas. There alone by choice. I woke. Up early and made coffee. No matching sweaters. No schedule. No expectations. I sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket watching the ocean. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was missing something. I felt like I had arrived. Here's what I learned, and it took me 32 years to understand it. Being forgotten doesn't mean you're forgettable. Being excluded doesn't mean you're unworthy. Sometimes you're not missing from the table because there's no room. You're missing because your presence would force someone else to face themselves. I didn't reclaim a house. I reclaimed my name, my history, my right to exist without shrinking. I stopped waiting to be invited, and I started choosing where I belong. If you've ever been made to feel invisible, ask yourself this. Are you actually unwanted? Or are you standing at the wrong door? Because the moment you stop knocking, you realize something powerful. Some doors weren't meant to open. They were meant to be walked away from, and on the other side of that choice is something better, quiet strength, and finally peace.